I'm Mark Lanier, teacher, author, lawyer, and sometimes dabbler in Greek and Hebrew.
Mark Lanier, welcome back to Exegetically Speaking. You've been with us before. Thanks
It is so much fun to be back, but boy, time flies when you are with you.
I know. That's what people say. I wonder if there's something, I wonder if I can slow things down just a little bit. I like to sometimes. Yeah. Now, you've been with us, and you've talked a little bit about how you learned Greek and Hebrew and everything. Let's just kind of diagnostic question at the very beginning. What's the best advice you'd give to a Greek student these days or a Hebrew student?
Don't become computer reliant. Actually learn it. Actually learn it. Okay. Force yourself to make the brain work. If you don't have time, then just recognize you will function at a different level if you're computer dependent.
Okay. You can still get some things, but you're not going to get the level of insight.
Yeah. I mean, grab any level you can, but the deeper you personally learn, the deeper you will go.
Good advice, good advice. All right, 2 Chronicles 17:6. You're writing actually a devotional on the narratives of the Old Testament.
Yeah, it's a devotional teaching book. So I try to give a devotional thought each day, a devotional application, but I also try to teach something in the text each day. So it's not a mere feel good, love God, but it's let's enrich your mind at the same time and know why you're loving Him.
All right, so what's happening in 2 Chronicles here, 17? What's a lot happening?
Yeah, lots happening. I just love a good pun, and that's why I love this verse. It packs a great one if we're reading it in the Hebrew. I mean, the backstory is Asa was a king who had gotten off to a good start, but ended up on the wrong foot. At the risk of making a bad pun, he died with foot problems. His fervor for God waned later in his life. And when he died, his son Jehoshaphat took the throne. And Jehoshaphat starts out with great zeal for God. And his walk was even compared with King David, which is a measuring stick of wonder. And in return, the scripture says God blessed Judah during Jehoshaphat's reign. Jehoshaphat was able to fortify cities and the country grew strong. And then you have this summary verse of Jehoshaphat, which is the Chronicles passage, 17:6. And it says, his heart was courageous in the ways of the Lord. He took the high places in the Asherim out of Judah. Now, it almost seems like those are two disjointed sentences, and in English they seem to be. His heart was courageous. I mean, did it take courage to destroy the high places in the Asherim? You know, how are those two really connected? And the connection is in the Hebrew. It's not so much in the English. So if you see the word courageous, it's the first word in the Hebrew sentence. It's placed first for emphasis. And that word gavah, it's got the original idea behind that word is the idea of high. It's something that's exalted. And so it can be used in a good sense, like it is here, of his heart and his mind soared to lofty places in godliness. Or it can be used of someone whose heart swells up in haughtiness in a bad way. But it's associated with being high or elevated. And so now you've got his heart's elevated in the ways of the Lord, and he took down the elevations, the high places, and the Asherim out of Judah. Now, the high places there are the Bamas, the physical high places on the mountains. So you've got the pun being made off of his heart was exalted in the Lord. It's lifted up high in the Lord. And then he went out to those mountains and he tore down those high places where people were trying to exalt themselves by physically going up someplace high. Wow. And the punch is his greatness lay not in his own elevation, but in the elevation of the one true God.
Well, that's pretty fascinating.
Isn't that a great pun?
It really is. I had never seen that before. So his heart is elevated, so he takes down those elevated places where people were exalting themselves and other gods as well.
Yes, and his heart's not just elevated. It says it was elevated in the Lord.
Yes.
Because that same word can be used for self-elevation and haughtiness. And that would not be a good thing. But that his heart is elevated or exalted in the ways of the Lord, And you see it in his actions because he takes away anything else that stands in competition to the exalting of the Lord.
Fascinating. That's a great reading. Mark Lanier, thank you for being with us today on Exegetically Speaking. I know of no one more dedicated and excited to read the Bible in the original languages than Mark Lanier. His enthusiasm is contagious. Thanks to our Wheaton-based team for helping us with this podcast. That would be John Lonsma, Rebecca Larson, Jesse Dugan. Thanks to our editor, my wife, Kathy Capes. Thanks to Phil Keggy and David Capes for our music. There are links in the show notes that tell you how you can get started reading biblical languages too. You don't have to want to be a professor one day or a pastor or even a Bible translator. Here is Mark Lanier, a world-class lawyer who has founded law offices in Texas, Missouri, California, and New York. He has learned these languages and he uses them on a regular basis, Greek and Hebrew. You can too. Until next time, I'm David Capes. Thanks for listening.